I would like to call to order a regular meeting of the Board of Education, June 22nd, 2021 at 7 o'clock p.m. Kathy, could you please call the roll?
Dremel.
Here.
Lott.
Here.
Lowe.
Present.
Mathis.
Here.
Meadows.
Present.
And Meisler.
Here. All right, Mrs. Meitzler, would you please lead us in the pledge? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any items to be removed from or added to the agenda tonight, Dr. Hitchens?
There are not.
All right, so our first item is public comment. I'd just like to remind everybody of our policy. If you'd like to speak to the board, we ask that you fill out a pink sheet. There's also a blue sheet if you would like to just have comments added to the minutes. You can fill out a blue sheet with any comments and give them to Kathy Scafidi, and they will be included in the minutes of the meeting. But if you would like to speak, we ask you to fill out a pink sheet with your name and address information. We ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes so that everyone has a chance to speak, and also gives us time to continue doing our work tonight. We will call you up in the order that we got the pink sheets. We'll ask you actually to go back to the podium just so that the microphone can pick up your comments easily. And we will start with Adam Page. And apparently it's a little bit of a maze to get back there, so I apologize.
Good evening. First of all, I just wanted to thank our school board, our administrators, and our teachers for all they did over this last school year. Nobody in this room signed up for what the last year brought us. And I really appreciate all that you've done to keep our teachers and our students front and center in your decision making. So thank you. I know it wasn't easy. More specifically, I wanted to thank our board administrators, our board members, our administrators, and our teachers for all they've done to create a more accurate and representative curricula and learning experiences in our schools, which will better equip all of our students for success in their lives. While Batavia, like many other white suburban districts, still has a lot of work to do to close opportunity gaps that exist for our black students and other students of color, it's important that we applaud the forward action that we've already taken. So thank you. I also want to encourage our board administrators and teachers to continue to amplify diverse voices and perspectives at all levels. This includes curricular choices, but it also includes making District 101 a place where teachers from diverse cultural backgrounds at work want to work, so we can make sure our classroom teachers represent our multicultural society. And lastly, I want to stress that this work of multiculturalism doesn't happen by accident. Teachers need training and materials in order to make sure they are teaching a full and comprehensive understanding of history, science, math, music, art, and athletics. And teachers tend to teach what they were taught, and many of us have a lot to learn. We need to not only encourage our teachers to seek out and broaden their own diverse knowledge, but also we need to provide our teachers with the training that they need to create age-appropriate, culturally relevant, and racially diverse learning experiences in their classrooms. This work is challenging, and it often makes teachers and leaders feel a little uncomfortable. But that is the case with all work that's really worth doing. And it's a price that we should be willing to pay. And the good news is that our children are way more comfortable talking about this than we are. So thank you again for your time this evening. Thanks for continuing to honor, respect, and value all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Dr. Jennifer Rowe.
Thank you to the superintendent and the board for this opportunity. My name is Dr. Jennifer Rowe, and I have been a Batavia resident for almost 16 years and an educator for over 23. As a Black resident of this community that has two biracial sons, one that graduated from BHS in 2020 and one that is a freshman, I felt that it was important for me to show up at this most crucial time due to the inaccurate information that is being shared surrounding critical race theory, not to be confused with culturally responsive teaching and learning and education. It is important for members of our community to know that our schools do not teach critical race theory. which is an academic and legal concept that came out of graduate law programs over 4 decades ago. And it is not taught in our classrooms. Critical race theory is not a program, it's not a strategy, it's not a framework that educators apply to their practices, and it is not a form of government. Teaching and learning about whole history, about the multiple experiences, as well as the various stories of our vast peoples is critical. And my hope is that our educators feel compelled not to be afraid of seeing all of our children, understanding the importance of their work, and that they are committed to, even during these most challenging times, and to grow into the social justice instructional practitioners we need them to be. It is important to have a common understanding of the terms that we are discussing, as they have impact and also shape the narrative. Equality in education means providing everyone with exactly the same resources. But equity in education means providing everyone with what they need in order to have an equal educational experience. My oldest son had auditory processing deficits, and he needed to have extended time to take tests in a quiet place. But my other son, he's really on the gifted level, and he needed classes that fit his needs. They did not have the same classes, as their needs were different. Equality would demand that they receive the exact same thing, but equity allows them to receive what they need to succeed and to reach their fullest potential. I love both of my boys with all of my heart. Even though they have grown up in the same home, they have very different experiences, and both are valid and true. When I had my second boy, I never felt like my love needed to be redistributed, and that something now needed to be taken away from my oldest son. I just had more love to give. Folks that are sharing that critical race theory is a redistribution of anything based on race are just spreading fear. This type of belief system has always worked to keep people of color marginalized and not seen as equal in society. We do not see concerns being shared about gender equity or even ableism, but all of this concern about the curriculum is being centered around race. This comes to us in Batavia, where we have 95% white teachers and an extremely traditional curriculum. My children have gone through, and only one of them has ever had a teacher that looked like them. My sons have rarely experienced history about themselves beyond oppression and suffering, and they have never really read a book that was an anchor text that was written by someone from their own cultural background or showed any Black joy. As a parent, I've had to be very active in their educational experience to teach them that they have positive contributions and a history and that they matter. So I'm just here to say that we need to know our terms, know the truth, and that we need to be open to listening to each other. So thank you for your time, and I encourage and welcome to hear the rest of the guests tonight.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Jennifer Nevins.
Thank you for having me. Recently, I had a candid conversation regarding critical race theory with Superintendent Hitchens. In our conversation, she assured me that CRT is not being added to the 2021-22 curriculum. I appreciate this willingness to discuss this very important issue. I am glad that BPS appears to value parental opinion. I am quite relieved that CRT will not be taught in my daughter's school because any doctrine that classifies children, even as young as 3 years old, into categories of the oppressed and the oppressor, the victimized and the perpetrator, only wrecks the expressed goal of unifying people. A hyper-focus on external traits, in this case skin color, reduces, marginalizes, and sometimes can even terrorize people. As a quick perusal of YouTube videos shows, parents of all races are speaking out against this poisonous, anti-American, pro-Marxist ideological sewer water that in many cases is being foisted on children against their parents' wishes. I am the parent of a Batavia High School student. I am also a licensed educator and historian with 2 degrees in U.S. and modern European history. I understand well the parallels between CRT and its earlier 20th century incarnations promulgated by some of the world's worst dictators. In some cases, like CRT, it was predicated on race. In other cases, it was predicated on class. In all cases, such divisive ideology resulted in complete societal destruction. It was only a matter of time. The remodeled version of CRT will be no different, so I am glad to hear that BPS is not changing its curriculum to teach CRT. However, I must tell you that I have two concerns. First, CRT has quickly become a toxic term, and school districts everywhere have simply renamed it things more innocuous sounding, such as diversity and inclusion education, or some other name involving equity that does not really equate equity. It is not what we think of as equity. Equality is what we should be striving for. Equity is the Marxist brass ring. And so parents in this district will need to remain vigilant as we monitor our students' assignments and course materials. Furthermore, as an educator, I know that curriculum is simply a framework, and teachers have the latitude to create content in whichever way they believe meets the Common Core standards. I will take the superintendent at her word that the goal of BPS instructors are to teach students how to think and not what to think. As a district parent, I intend to make sure that this adage is adhered to. My second concern involves the 4-year terms board members are elected to. 2 of the board members here today, I believe, are up in 2023, with the remainder up in 2025. Please know that your long terms in office will not insulate you from the effects of parent dissatisfaction. Now more than ever, parents know the power of social media, alternate media, and organized action. We also know about other educational choices that our children have, including homeschooling and private schooling. Both options are seeing a significant increase in this climate that we find ourselves in. Many Batavia parents are fortunate enough to have the resources to pull their students right out of BPS classrooms, and that is exactly what will happen if our students are subjected to hateful, divisive, prejudicial indoctrination given in the name of social justice, equality, or equity. We want our children to get along. We want our children to view everybody as an equal. We
It's
do
been
not
4
want...
minutes. Can you just summarize for us?
Sure.
Yes?
We do not want our students put into harmful classifications. I want to thank the board for being responsive to the parents in this district, and I look forward to many other productive interactions with you.
Thank you. I would like to invite Batavia Python, I'm sorry.
Thank you for having me and giving me this opportunity to speak. I am a taxpayer in Batavia, and I think it's extremely important that we talk about what this is that very corrupt forces are trying to do to this nation. We are all spirits in human form, not humans in spirit form. Spirits don't have a color. They don't have classifications like the CRT garbage that's being thrust upon us. We are all equal before God. We live our life according to principle, and the principles will dictate how you turn out. Now, with regards to injustice, let's talk about injustice. The very people that have created this mess were the ones that were the slave owners in this country and helped usher in slavery because they were part of the slave trade worldwide that ripped this whole country off, not just this country, but humanity off. Then after we defeated slavery, they went from an individual level to, hey, let's do group-wide slavery. We'll call it communism. And then they basically took over China. China went from 250. We just basically outsourced slavery. So the Democratic Party that's doing this crap, they lost with the individual slavery. Then they lost with the nation-state slavery. And now they want a mental slavery. They want to handicap people because they're waking up to the fact that they're corrupt as all heck. They're a bunch of scumbags, what they're doing with this. They're trying to literally destroy what America is. America, this will cause tremendous distrust. It will not cause trust. It will cause distrust. The inequality that exists, how about the fact that half of the black community in this country, Americans of African descent, they're not African Americans, we're all Americans first. Americans of African descent, they had no problem watching half of them kill off their babies. Or the 61 million abortions since 1974. Where was the outrage for that? So now, after you devastate the communities of color that used to have very similar marriage rates as whites up until the Great Society program of what's that, Lyndon Johnson. Go look it up for yourself. They had unbelievable economic opportunities. And guess what slavery couldn't do? Slavery could not destroy the family unit of Americans of African descent. Guess what did? The Democratic Party, with this insanity. And it started with this crap with Lyndon Johnson. Go look at his quotes. I don't even want to say his quotes. They're very disturbing. Go look at what Lyndon Johnson really was about. Okay? And now, all of a sudden, Americans of African heritage they literally won President Trump the election. They did.
All right, we're going to ask. you
Okay,
to
we'll wrap it up.
summarize,
30
please. We're over
seconds.
3 minutes.
Okay.
No, not 30 seconds. You have 3
Okay,
minutes.
so here's what I will say. Oh, I guess you get Orange Man bad. Orange Man is bad. You had to cut me off right when I said Trump. Is that the idea?
No,
Anyways, that's what it
I'm just going
sounded
to
like.
ask you to stop repeating
Yeah.
yourself and summarize
so-
your point, please, sir.
Yeah. So anyways, I think it's a disaster. It's going to cause a tremendous amount of increases in violence, and it will lead to a continued severing of society. This stuff is going to end. And by the way, I'm running for the United States Senate in Illinois, and I will make this a crime to push this propaganda onto the American citizens.
Thank you. All right. Next, I would like to, we do not have Todd Swanson here tonight to speak for the teachers union, but I'd like to start with Erin for her committee.
Committee updates.
CLAC will be having their summer meeting to plan for the next upcoming school year in August. And Portrait of a Graduate is filming some exciting news for everyone coming up in a few weeks.
Awesome. Is that it? All right, I saw RJ reach behind him for a packet.
Yeah, I don't have like a huge thing. I was able to go see Fox Valley. I literally was like,
Oh, the Fox Valley Career Center.
I was able to go
Awesome.
see Fox Valley Career Center with Lisa, and I'm really excited about all the stuff that they're doing there. So we'll have more, but the partnership has begun with me at least being the liaison. That's it. That's the end of my report.
That's awesome. Thanks, RJ. We're glad you're
Exciting.
excited.
Yeah.
All right, Greg.
Nothing at this point in time.
All right.
I guess I would just say, remind everyone that Hall of Honor is the week, we have September 22nd is our parade. The 23rd is the big event. Do we have a time for that? Did we ever decide?
You're the chair of the
I
meeting.
know, I know, I should know.
I
but
know,
don't.
it's somewhere in the evening, let's
somewhere
just
in
say,
the
of the
evening.
September
'Cause I have-
23rd. Dominic and Tony are both being honored as
Yes,
alums,
we have
so
2 honorees right
Yep.
here in this room. And then.
somewhere in the evening of the
somewhere in the
23rd.
evening. Awesome. I had 6 written down, but I don't want to
6-ish.
say that because I think that might be
Well,
when
that's
I need to be
6-ish.
there.
6-ish.
Do you know what I mean? Like, so, but, and there's no information on the website because I do.
All right.
But anyways, that's my report.
Chris.
I have no committee updates.
I did not, my committee did not meet either. So the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda, which is our opportunity to cover a number of routine business items all in one vote. All of the information is detailed in the board packet on board docs. And so Mr. Pierce will walk us through the consent agenda.
Absolutely. 4.1 and 4.2 is the approval of the May 25th, 2021 regular and closed session meeting minutes. 4.3 is the approval of the June 15th, 2021 special meeting minutes. 4.4 is our monthly personnel report. 4.5 is our monthly payroll and bills. 4.6 is the destruction of our closed session recordings from December 17th, 2019. 4.7 is the approval of our various curriculum subscriptions. 4.8 is the designation of authorized depositories. 4.9 is the approval of disbursement of property tax rebate. 4.10 is the approval of insurance benefit contract renewals. 4.11 is the certification of hazardous bus routes. 4.12 is the approval of the emergency purchase of student desks. And 4.13 is the approval of our consent agenda.
All right, any items on tonight's consent agenda for clarification or removal from consent? No, pretty straightforward tonight. All right, then I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved by Locke, second by Meitzler. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next item on our agenda is our reports, which I will hand over to Dr. Hitchens.
Yes, the first two reports are our monthly FOIA requests, so the board needs to see what has been requested through the Freedom of Information Act, and the second is our monthly treasurer's reports. So if you have any questions about those, we'd be happy to answer them now. In the third report on this part of the agenda, no action in the report section. As you know, the board governs through policy, and we constantly review our policy. And this month, we are bringing one policy for first reading. Next month will be chock full O policy because we just got a new press update, so we're going through those right now, and we'll bring you the relevant ones next month, so you can expect a much bigger policy report next month. This month only has one, and it came from, Portrait of a Graduate. There was a lot of great work that's been done, and as a part of the review, we did look at our SEL policy, and it doesn't match the state policy. So the changes that you see there match the press recommendations from the Illinois Association of School Boards. So we were just making our policy, we just thought it should match what is in press, because that's normally what we do with our policy unless we have a reason to act differently. So this is for first reading, and what we usually do is take any questions now, but I'll give you guys the month to think about it, and you can bring your questions next month to meeting unless you had any right now, because we would adopt it after you had a chance to look at it.
No questions? All right.
And then there's one more report tonight, and there's one action item on the agenda. But before we get to the action item, let's go to the report, Tony's preliminary budget.
So this is the board's and the community's first look at the fiscal year 2022 budget. Just by way of process, you'll have a first look at this here this evening in June. In July, at your meeting on the 20th, we will place a tentative budget on public display, which will have more detail than is provided here now. And of course, things are subject to change between now and then until adoption. In August, on the 24th, we'll hold a public hearing where the community can weigh in as to their opinions and comments, and the board will have an opportunity to consider them and adopt the budget in full in September at their meeting, at the board's meeting on the 21st. All indications are that the budget will be balanced. Right now, we're forecasting a $400,000 surplus. And with that surplus, that would maintain the board's revenue to fund balance ratio of 35%, which we've been maintaining now for a few years. And that's above the board's target of 25% and the target set by the Illinois State Board of Education. Some key aspects of this budget you might be interested in. As I mentioned, the fund balance to revenue ratio of 35%, that's important. As historically, until about 3 years ago, the board has had to issue tax anticipation warrants each year to cover its payrolls in the spring because receipts were not adequate enough to get us through the full fiscal year. So that indicates continued fiscal health. Revenues are increasing by 1.2% this year, while expenditures are increasing by 4%. And there's a number of reasons for that. Predominantly is the pandemic. There were a lot of expenditures that and activities that did not take place while we were in lockdown or in remote instructional modes. And so we're seeing those activities come back, and we're expecting that we'll be in-person instruction with almost near to normal in the upcoming school year. Also, all of expenses, in particular relative for salaries and benefits, are higher than the prior year because there were a number of positions that went unfilled as the labor market was as it was, and we weren't able to fill all of our positions. And we also have hired 8 FTE to staff our new kindergarten enrichment program. So, so there are substantially more expenditures there relative to salary and benefits than have been in the prior year. But overall, I think things are as expected. Once you get into those details that we'll show you next month, you'll see a lot of variances. And unfortunately, the answer is pretty much going to be COVID. But where those are exceptions, we'll do our best to notate those for you. But we'd be happy to entertain any questions or concerns that you might have at this time.
So that's one of the reasons you're seeing that the pupil to staffing ratios and is kind of increasing because of that additional kind of kindergarten enrichment, and then also just declining students balancing themselves out between the two.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, we expect 12.9 FTE more than last year.
Okay.
So that's the opposite direction of what we want to head in general, just
In
to
general.
maintain fiscal health. And so we'll have to be diligent in future years. But of course, adding this enrichment program is the right thing to do strategically. It's one of the board's goals, to
Right.
intervene
Early
for early,
education.
for early learning. We think it's a good thing, but we do have to kind of mind the store in that regard, because compounding interest is a real problem, especially when it comes to salaries and benefits.
Any other questions? Comments? We will get to look at this every month for the next few months, so.
More questions to follow.
Right, exactly.
It's all subject to change.
Okay, then we're going to move on to our action item, Building Our Future Together. I'm going to start by handing it over to Dr. Hitchens.
Great. This is our last action item on the agenda today, and it is a continuation of the discussion we started last month, and really the discussion we started about 3.5 years ago when the board realized that they asked for a vision for our facilities rather than we have a very functional capital projects group, but they can only do so much with the budget that they're given, and they actually requested that we have that long-term vision so that they can plan accordingly. And so fast forward 3.5 years or so, we did finalize our recommendations through a citizen and staff committee with the help of DLR Group. There's a few members of DLR Group here in the audience, Carrie and Dennis, to answer any questions you have as well. And we presented this last month, and we said we'll give you the chance to look it over or have an entire box of all of the documents printed out. It is on the website. There are a lot of hyperlinks to all of the work that's been done and all the analyses that DLR Group did for us. And so we gave you the month to think about that and come back with the questions that you have. Because what the core team has done was given you some recommendations for the facilities. And but before we can move forward to the next step, which is really what everybody's looking for, how much is this going to cost? Give me a timeline, give me specifics. Before we could do that, we need you to say, yep, we understand that this is a plan, plans can change, but this is the direction as a board that we would like to go. And once you vote on that, if that's the case, then the next step would be to give you that in-depth implementation plan that everyone's looking for. Like, when does this start? How are we going to pay for it? We would need to seek a referendum anytime we build new schools. So when would that happen? We would come back to you and do all that work and come back to you as quickly as we could. But we wanted to hear from you, answer your questions, and get your approval to move forward.
That would, say we say, yes, let's move forward here, then that means each item next time we'll be voting along the way?
Correct. So we wouldn't
Understand.
go ahead and put that referendum question on a ballot yet. We would, be putting a plan together, and then there would be so many votes that you would have along the way. For example, just any project that, in the short term, we would be doing more projects. You'd be voting on each of those projects individually at the, first the capital projects report you would see, and then the actual bids you would see, and you'd be voting on those. So you're not giving approval for us to do all of this. It's just to do the planning for it.
Just want to make sure.
Yep, good question.
That's a really good question.
So that leads into one of my questions, and it may be the next step, part of the timeline. So I recognize that, well, I'm going to say first, I know personally, there's a lot of work that was done here, so I want to say, personally, I appreciate all the effort of all the volunteers, and the teachers, and the staff, and the administration, and everybody else to amass this information, because it's significant, and it's very good, and it is a lot of reading, so I apologize if I missed something. But that next step is kind of like options for implementation is a bit of what I'm looking for, because you just alluded to it, that there's two components. We've been actually doing quite well compared to a lot of other districts that I'm aware of about kind of funding maintenance now better than we used to be. you know, and how we might be able to kind of not catch up, but at least implement some of these. So how do those fit in with broader and larger projects at each school is something I'm interested in knowing, so that we don't get in front of a project that we're doing later. And I know that's one of the intents behind this, and I have great faith that it'll get there. I personally also need to understand a little bit of kind of that cost. It's the one thing, I mean, I understand that what we're approving or what we're moving forward with tonight is like the concept and how this is moving forward and the approach. I'm not quite ready personally to say it's a plan yet, but it's getting there. You know, and I think that's part of the next step. You can't have a plan without a timeline. You can't have a plan without some ramifications impact. But it's a really, really good kind of needs and wish list, which is step one. So I'm okay with that. Because I personally need to understand a little bit of the cost to the value of what we're getting. I've participated in these, and sometimes your needs and your wish list is more than you might be able to afford. And one of the tenets in this document is that we live within our means. And I plan on taking that very, very seriously, as you know, we all do. And that's part is not quite flushed out yet, to me. And I think the only other thing that I was putting on, it's a personal item of mine, is there's a, almost like because of these community input survey, kind of a tendency to lean toward the replacement of 3 schools versus 4 schools. I'm not quite sure I'm locked into that yet, because there's such a big dollar value potentially associated with that, that I think I need to understand the value of that, you know, to that. And I need to learn more, is what I'm saying about that. So, but I'm not saying, to me, is just because that's what one survey has said without dollars associated with it, it
Right.
needs to be vetted out.
Right.
So I think to the broader point, to the broader board here, is there may be things in this that as we move forward, we need to tweak and adjust, or they will need to tweak and adjust, and we will approve or not, because of, you gotta be able to implement it, and that changes from a vision to a plan. So, does that make sense?
Is Mark here?
No, but I'm sure Tony can answer your question.
No, I just wanted to say, I looked at some of this, and this is just, for example, this is Storm School. This is a listing of everything that needs to be done at Storm School. And so I looked at it and kind of went, I have no idea what is the exterior face brick, shell, must do, unit cost $195,000. So, actually, I called up Mark Anderson, and he met me, and we were actually at AGS. And I took the sheet, and we went through, and he was wonderful, because I don't know what interior partition, wall finishes, you know. And he walked around, and he pointed out all this stuff, and it was kind of funny, because I want to say my home school, let's say, is AGS. So he's like, oh, I bet you've never been in here. And I'm like, oh, I bet you I have, because, you know, you're on PTO, you go in these little rooms and stuff, and, you know, he's showing me where all the stuff is flaking off, and it's, you know, and you start looking at stuff, and you're like, oh, I never noticed, you know, and yeah, and he's pointing out how things you didn't even notice, that half the doorknobs aren't even ADA compatible. And it's just simple things that, like, for $650, those all have to be changed out, and it starts adding up. And so it was very informative. And you can see how all of a sudden this sheets, they just keep going on and on and on, and it does add up. Whether or not it gets to the 50% threshold, I mean, obviously they say it does. They're the experts, you know, but it was very interesting.
Yeah, that's an example of how, you know, the capital projects group said, we need a vision, because if the vision is to replace, if it is to
Yeah.
replace HC Storm, then we really wouldn't replace all the doorknobs
Right.
and
It makes sense
repair the
that why should we
partitions
be
and all
doing
those
this
things,
now?
knowing that it's,
Exactly. So it was very informative, and because like I said, I looked at this stuff and I was like, I don't know what, you know, I mean, obviously I know what carpeting is, and, you know, but walking around the school with this in my hand, you know, getting an actual visual look at it was very informative. So it helped me kind of, you know, I don't want to say put a face to the, you know, the numbers, but it was very helpful. And, you know, you kind of take a look at the schools and you think, oh, they're fine. And then you start looking deeper and you go, maybe not so much. And I know we've done our best. Putting a roof, putting new chillers in, whatever. But, and I truly appreciate all the work that everyone has done, the group. You know, I asked Kathy to print out that report, and this is what I got, a whole box full here. So there was quite a bit of reading to do, but I read through it. It was very informative, and I appreciate everybody's work. So it was good. Anybody?
I just want to echo what Craig said in that, you know, I'm extremely proud of the collaboration that we've done to get to this point. And I think this is a great start and a great plan, but things are subject to change and we don't know what's going to happen down the road, so let's go from here and see where it leads us.
I think one really important part that is in here is talking about our allocation of continuing capital improvements, not just capital projects. I think one of the changes that I've seen, at least in the last 7 to 8 years, and a lot of it is thanks to Tony, is that we are taking a very long-term view that we never did. It's very easy for a school district to get so focused just on the student experience and all of those things that relate to the direct education, that I think it's been easy in the past, especially during a recession and during tough economic times, to focus everything on things like curriculum and quality staff and all of those things that really directly impact a student and sort of put the other things to the side. And so I think that it's really important. There's a part here that says we need to be looking at this long term, and Tony's done a great job of guiding us that way, I think, budgetarily overall. And I just think we need to continue, we need to not lose that focus, and we need to not forget our history, that needs to be part of what we're doing. All right, so any other questions or comments? All right, well then, what we'd be voting on tonight again is just adapting the report, approving the report from the core team. So again, it's not an action of we are committing to any one specific activity, because we will be fleshing that out and we'll be having lots of discussions about it. But it's more than symbolic, but not quite action plan yet. So I would entertain a motion to approve the final report from the Building Our Future Together core team.
Second.
Moved by Locke, second by Meadows. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's exciting. That was our only action item tonight. That actually went quicker, although like one thing that I do commend this board on is that we have asked to repeatedly talk about these things, so we're not trying to digest it all in one night. We have lots and lots and lots of time to think about things. So that has made a lot of our work easier. I kind of joked about the budget earlier, but we will look at it 3 or 4 times before we adapt it, and that makes it easier. I will jump to Dr. Hitchens for administrative comments.
Yeah, thank you very much for all of the work that the core team put in over these years, and also to the board over the last few months for really doing your homework and reading everything. I know you guys have really put a lot of thought into that. So then I would also just say, I know we have some new people in the audience tonight, because I talked to a couple before we started, and now that they see how the board works through policy, and you know, we do only comment on the things that are on our agenda. So I would say, now that you know where the agendas are posted and how our meetings run, we look forward to more engagement. So that's my comments for tonight.
Thank you. Chris, we'll start down with you.
I'm just happy the school year's finally over, because track and field ended this weekend. So congrats to the boys and girls track and field team. The boys came in 7th at state, and we did have a state champion, the 4x200 team, which was awesome. So happy summer. I'm glad we're finally here.
Yeah, for sure. Sue?
I think I'm good.
Craig?
So while track and field is finishing, marching band season is starting. So it's very exciting to hear that all the hard work that was put in the past couple of years is kind of reviving itself. It'll be a little more condensed group of kids, but it'll be a very fun and exciting group of kids, and I'm very excited to get back to it, and I'm really hoping I can lose some of this pandemic weight with actually working on stuff for it, so we'll see how that goes. But But it's just kind of exciting. I mean, the stuff that's going on here and what we're moving forward with is really good. And, I was thinking about like this approval thing. And to me, it's like the content and the information I think is right. And that's why I kind of approved it for that. But really, and I don't mean to demean how hard and arduous and all the involvement on that, building for the core team and the building our future work is. From a board perspective, the hard part begins now.
Oh, yeah.
This is where we gotta really figure out what it means to the community, what it means to the students and everything
Then the
else.
fun part, to put together the whole wish list.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Fun, huh?
yeah.
Oh, yeah. RJ worked arduously on
Oh, yeah, I know, it's a lot of work, yeah. I know it was. Thank you.
RJ.
I'm happy to be part of both sides of the building our future, so.
That's exciting.
Father's Day was just this past weekend, and I've been trying to think of a way to say this without like saying nothing like about females. So believe me, I know how hard mothers work and females work, but I just want to take the opportunity to thank all the male role models and fatherly figures in our community, even those who aren't actual fathers, those who go to the schools and volunteer. I know we've got the Watchdog program, and I know we've got Fathers of Great, I can't think what it's called, Fathers of Great Dads?
Dads of great students.
Dads of Great
Watchdog.
Watchdog, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, yeah, I'm fumbling over my words. And then, of course, male teachers, anyone that, and coaches, people who volunteer, all the males out there who do their best to help be good role models for children who might not have good male figures in their life and things like that, so that's all I have to say. So thank you to all those who do that.
Thanks, RJ. That's awesome. Aaron.
Well stated. It's hard to come behind that.
Right. You gotta follow that.
Thank you to the Building Our Futures Together committee. We have a lot of hard work in front of us, but I appreciate the foundation that has been put into place for us. So thank you, and Tony, although we'll be discussing it for weeks on end coming up, thank you for the hard work on the budget, and to Lindsay too.
Especially Lindsay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I look forward to discussing it further.
Thank you.
All right. I cannot ever add anything better than what the board adds, so I'm just going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, come on, you guys tied. Moved by Meadows,
Second.
second by Lowe. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned. That was quicker than I thought it would be.